Take the Leap is the podcast where we get real about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and life. Sure, some folks make running a business look like a walk in the park, but let's be honest, it's more like a wild ride through a theme park with a lot of unexpected twists and turns.
Join us, your co-hosts, Ashlan
and Tory,
as we spill the beans on our own real-life experiences and shine a spotlight on some amazing guests. From the highs of success stories to the lows of epic failures. And hey, we'll even throw in some cringe-worthy, laugh-out-loud, embarrassing moments for good measure.
So buckle up and tune in every Tuesday and Thursday for a dose of raw, unfiltered truth about what it's really like to chase your dreams and build a business.
Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just dipping your toes into the startup world, we've got something for everyone. Even if it's just to make you think, wow, I'm glad I didn't do what they did. Welcome back to the Take the Leap podcast. We're really excited to have Nedra Rezinas joining us today. Nedra brings over 20 years of collective business experience to the table, including working with hundreds of businesses on their websites and marketing decisions. She is a marketing strategist and coach who helps service-based businesses create a 90-day custom marketing roadmap. In addition, Nedra coaches her clients on how to build confidence, consistently market their business, and gives them permission to market authentically and connect to their values. Nedra supports clients who identify as introverted, empathy-driven, and/or highly sensitive, want to connect with people by building authentic relationships that can lead into referral partners, and want to remove feelings of shame around promoting themselves to others. Nedra teaches at the School of Business at Portland State University. And at the Oregon Small Business Development Center. Thank you so much, Nedra, for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to let you dive in and just tell us, what is your Take the Leap story? What motivated you to start your own business and start coaching?
Oh boy. So I've owned multiple businesses. So I think there was a time when I did work for people that just didn't feel right. So I took the leap a long time ago in 2003. I took the leap and just started making dog gear, and had my first dog that I owned, and just wanted to create a product that was useful, and like kind of like a diaper bag for your dog to put all your stuff in it. And it was really fun, and people could identify with it. And I did a lot of shows. I did like Pride festivals, Saturday Market in Portland. I consigned at doggy daycares and other places, and I learned a lot about business. But I also failed a lot too, and I think it was great to have that first business be short and sweet, and then nip in the bud because I started getting lots of credit card debt, and it was kind of like one of those, like, there was a leap in there where I was like, you know what? Do I want to put like $10,000 more in credit card debt to hope that I'm going to sell these bags, or do I want to stop while I'm ahead? And I actually had a really interesting conversation with someone who had just made a huge investment like that and was selling these special bags and tried to get on VH1. I mean, this is 2003, it's a long time ago, and was trying to inch along and basically almost had to declare bankruptcy. And it was just this like whoa, okay, I don't want that. And she was just like, don't do what I did. I'm like, okay. It was like a message from the future. So that's when I started picking up web design work and creating my web design agency. That was the next phase. And I actually got a lot of work off Craigslist, because Craigslist was a very interesting tool back then. And I had a really good, successful web design business for almost 15 years. But at some point you hit burnout. You go, okay, I've done this a lot. I've helped as many people. And this is what leads me to what I'm doing today. The one thing I noticed that happened over and over is I would talk to people about their websites, and we'd have these strategy sessions, but they'd want to talk about all these other parts of marketing. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, I think you need help with marketing. They're like, yeah, can you help me? And I'm like, no, I'm a web designer. I just focus on the websites. But they kind of get upset and mad at me, like, well, why can't you help me? And so finally I started listening to people, and I'd be like, why can't I help them? And started taking these certifications and diving into different parts of marketing that I'm like, you know what, I do know about this, and if I don't, I know where to fill the gaps in, and then started expanding those strategy sessions that I did with my web designers into more of a marketing session, and people were really like, whoa, this is cool, like kind of like giving them the possibilities of what they could do, and helping them see, connect the dots in a way that helped them market authentically and not have to be doing all the things that everyone's telling them to do. I think that was very eye-opening for folks.
I love that. Yeah, I think you and I had first met when you came and did a presentation about web design, and then I remember us like connecting afterwards, and you're like, "By the way, I'm not going to be doing this much anymore," which I thought was really funny. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay. What how can I support you in your new endeavor?" And I think that's been really nice to stay connected. And I'm actually looking off to the right. I have like a Happy Taco Day thing, which was like a card that you had sent me a while back that I still have on the wall as well. So yeah, that's super cool to hear about your journey.
Thanks. It's definitely journeys, and the transition parts are usually pretty messy and sloppy and ugly, and as we all know, and nobody talks about those. And but we have to get through it to get to the other side to actually evolve and grow. And yeah, there's definitely some evolutions there.
So knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give yourself when you first started?
It's really about who your network is. It's like everything's about your network, and I even with my first business, I started realizing, oh, this is how. Okay, even in college when they kept saying, create network and get to know people, I really didn't understand what that meant. I was very intimidated by the idea because it just was like, I have to put myself out there. I don't know. I'm just so young. I don't understand. But it was really like seeing people wanting to help you, and not necessarily wanting anything in return. They just generally want to help you. Like this one, I think there was this one great guy that was on my husband's soccer team, and he just wanted to help me. And so he knew a boutique owner that would be willing to carry my bags, and just made an introduction, and bam, it happened. And so it's all about having those people that are on your side that just want to see you succeed. I think, and understanding how you can help other people do that too. And I think that I don't think it really even hit me till years later how important that is. So I think, going back, really putting more emphasis in building those relationships, and being more grateful, and sending thank you cards, like the handwritten thank you cards. I remember someone telling me that back years ago, and I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not going to do that. And then someone 10 years after that said, you should be doing that. I'm like, okay, it's a broken record. I better maybe listen to these people. And it's very effective, and it does make a huge difference. So should have been writing those thank you cards a long time ago.
Yeah, there's so many people who do them, and I'm like, oh, I need to start doing that for like the relationship building as well, or just remembering to follow up with people. I know that that's like an area that I need to get better at as well.
Yeah, and you remember it's a much bigger impact than an email, or even, I mean, a voicemail people can hold on to voicemails, but it's not tangible. It's something you can't hold. And even just the other day in the mail, I got a postcard, and we were having a big election here in Portland, and somebody wrote me a note about, taking interest in this candidate, and I held on to it because I'm like, well, maybe, that's a lot of effort. Maybe I should take a look and see why they wrote this postcard, and see if it's worth it to vote for this person. That was much more effective than all the flyers that were never catered to me, or, there was no sign of handwritten anything on any of them. They were just all like blasted. So something that stands out, I think, is so refreshing, and it's very rare these days.
Well, you alluded to it a little bit when you shared your Take the Leap story, that you felt like working for other people wasn't working for you. So I'd love for you to expand on what's your why you chose entrepreneurship over working for other folks.
Well, I think a lot of people would agree with me. Flexibility is probably the number one reason. It's really wonderful to be able to work the hours that make sense for your lifestyle, or make sense to you. And over the years, being able to, well, somewhere down the road, I had a child, so that probably also added the flexibility piece. It kind of like all of a sudden it was here, and I went pew. It went skyrocketed as a priority, because I think I don't think I understood the gravity of what flexibility really meant until I had this being I had to take care of and then juggle all the other things on top of it. And I remember people kept saying, well, it's really great to have a business because, it's gonna help you be a better mom, and you can run your business and the baby. And I'm just like, sure, I have no idea what you're talking about, but yeah, that sounds great. I've never done this before. I'll take your word for it. But no, and then what was also really timely to see is how many people I did know become moms and then struggle trying to go back to work full time, and they maybe try to do maybe like a 30-hour week or part time, and just was I was like all or nothing and just kind of defeated. So I felt very fortunate that I've been a business owner and can manage my time and be able to have those pieces where I can work at night and take care of stuff in the day. I've definitely taken advantage of grocery shopping through the day sometimes where, it's really quiet and it's very time efficient. I remember reading this book years ago about, always being aware of when the busy times are, the busy traffic and things like that, and scheduling your day around that if you're going to be very effective with your time management. And I'm like, I've never, and this was back like in the 2000s, and I really don't remember any blogs or anybody talking about that type of stuff. And I think we've gotten a little obsessed about time management in that regards, but now we're kind of obsessed about it 20 years later. And I think time is, as I age and as now that baby is a 13-year-old, I realize that time is the one commodity we can't get back. It's something that disappears right through our hands. And so to be able to honor that and play with that and have it be something that we can value more is, I think I'm pretty on board with that. And I think that is a big reason why I work for myself, just because I can value my time better.
Yeah. My favorite shopping times are to go to Costco at 11 or 2 in the afternoon when nobody is there. I never ever want to go on weekends. Yeah. If people are there. Yeah. Yeah. This is my prime time. Yeah. Or I can tell when spring break is, because then things get busier and you're like, where are you all people from?
Yeah, it's very obvious. You're like, oh, this is not the normal schedule. What's going on here? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I definitely don't miss a commute. No commute, no sitting in the car for hours and hours.
That's
from
not very efficient.
To North Portland. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the return to work, I see a little value in it, in the fact that maybe it'd be good for people to socialize. I think being thoughtful about it would be great, to have purpose right behind it, instead of just you need to work and you need to be working in this desk now. It feels like it's pretty strict and not really coming from a place of let's build community, let's build this and that. I think that's what's important. If anything, that's the loss we had during COVID, is the communities were broken and people I teach at Portland State University, and I have office hours in the building where I teach, and it's a ghost town. There's hardly anyone there, as far as faculty go, and there's students, but it's still, I think it was much more vibrant. So it would be, I think there is a loss of community that's happening amongst the workplace that needs to be attended to, because we are social beings, and I think some of people are really isolated, and that does definitely leads to depression and anxiety, which is not good for our culture. So
yeah, the epidemic. I read something recently about the epidemic of loneliness, especially among younger folks, 28, that 18 to 24 range. And so many of them were kind of robbed of those formative years of their life and being able to socialize. So yeah, I remember when I came and was a guest speaker in your class and being even just finding somebody to ask, where do I go in this building, to find whatever, because that is kind of a weird, it's a weird layout. I feel for the Carl Miller Center now, if you've never been in it. But yeah, there were very few students in there, and I was like, oh, okay, there's nobody physically on campus right now. It's a little bit strange. But yeah, well, thank you so much for sharing that. We are going to transition into our hot seat questions. So we have 5 rapid fire, well, not so rapid fire, but 5 questions outside of the norm set that we would love to ask you about. And Tori is going to kick us off with her favorite question to ask.
All right. First hot seat question. What is the best or worst advice you've received through your career?
Best and worst okay. Well, let's see. There's been a lot of worse, so it's hard to nail that down. So let me give you a second to think about. But best, I think, is just following up with people, not being afraid to stay top of mind, and that could look like so many different things to so many different people. But I think generally being kind to people and reaching out and ask, getting to know people about who they are as a person, I think is really where the magic is when building relationships. And I've had a few good leaders that have or just people and mentors that have taught me that, and how much that being personable goes. I remember I did have, I think, some clients that were kind of my mentors. They taught me how to write a better email. That was some really good advice. But I remember getting, some pretty bad advice about, well, actually, I remember distinctly, I was at this networking event. This was a long time ago, probably 2005, but someone that's just kind of talking about what we were talking about before, how you can't do laundry and work in the same day. You can't do that stuff. No, it just isn't professional. I'm just like, what? Okay, it isn't to you, but I can swing it. Nobody, what? It was just this really, I could tell that she was struggling with her own identity and professionalism. And she, it's almost like in her mind, she decided that she can't do these things because probably someone told her she couldn't. It's just this it's horrible how these mantras start, and then people tell each other, and then they start to believe it because, well, they think, oh, well, they must have some authority to say these things. And that's just a silly example, but I think I've seen this happen again and again where someone in any kind of leadership authority will say something that they think is true and it's absolutely not, but then they convince other people that it is that way. And I know it's not the best example, but I think there's definitely some more. I'll have to think about that. That was a hard one to answer.
Oh, no. I mean, I do remember somebody at some point, I can't remember if it was a client or if it was something else that we were doing, but somebody was they started just turning their camera off during meetings, but it was a meeting that they were not required to be active in. You know how you get in these all staff meetings where
sure.
some of the folks don't really have a role, and so she was folding her laundry during the call, just double dipping. But there's so many times where I've been on multitasking on a call, and and she got scolded for that, and I'm like, so the rest of the time she was ever on group meetings, she just had her camera off. And so it's just that removes that, that visibility and stuff like that too. And it's just what is really, necessary or unnecessary. Or I think back to days that I was in the office where you're just shooting this shit with people, the water cooler talk and stuff. There would be days where I'm waiting for responses, and so I'm not super busy. We need to get out of this mindset that we're for 8 hours consecutively we are working or doing something productive. That's just not the way people operate, in their day.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I find that a lot of my colleagues and even me, I can focus for an hour or two, then I need to take a break and I need to just go outside or walk around. And actually my best ideas are when I'm not in front of the computer. It's when I finally leave, I'm like, oh, I didn't think of that. Oh my God, I need to write this down. Yeah. And even just doing the dishes is a really good activity, because it's kind of low pressure of just doing something, but I'm not trying to type something, I'm not trying to create something. And then all of a sudden that's when my brain relaxes and then things come in. And I think we have this culture mindset that, work really hard and, sit in front of that computer forever. And that's really not working and isn't that productive as exactly, Ashlan, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Sometimes we need a brain break or, when I was at that conference last week, we had a lot of like fidget toys on the table, like Play-Doh or like color, crayons and stuff like that. And it does allow your brain to kind of slow down and kind of,
Yeah.
relax and be more creative as well.
Yeah, I love seeing more of that. It's the playfulness is really important. I think that's great.
Mhm. Okay. I have the next question. So you did talk about your business pivot from website
Hmm.
to coaching in marketing, and so how, like, you had talked about, clients were like, "Hey, help me with this kind of stuff," but when was that like moment where you were like, "Hey, I'm going to like pivot this," and kind of how did you wind that down and wind the next thing up? Like, was there, you had mentioned it was messy, what would you have done, I
Hmm.
guess, for people now who, I do think a lot of people are having to pivot after COVID and like what this new normal is? What would
Hmm.
be some advice that you would give folks of like, did you just like cut it off and start, or was it a wind down and ramp up kind of process for you?
It Well, I had hired a business coach to help me with my web design business, and what I realized now that I can look back on it, she helped me a lot. It's just there was a big delay between like all the work, all the networking, and all the marketing I was doing, and then actually getting the clients. So it was almost like a 6 month to a year
Mm.
delay of how that worked. So I was kind of in this like kind of anxious, like restless period where I wasn't having a lot of work, and but I was still getting I was going to like all these networking events and talking to people, and they kept asking me about more marketing help, and I finally was like, maybe I should listen to what they're saying instead of like assume that they want this or that. It's I'm not really listening to them very well. I'm just exerting what I want them to talk about, which is web design, and so
Mm.
you know I think sometimes it's right in your face what you should be doing, but you're so convinced of one thing that you're not willing to listen, and that's been me a lot of during times of my life, and I'm kind of waking up to that now. But um, yeah, so it was kind of like a period where I just went quiet, and I remember hiking with a friend and talking through it, and she was just really supportive. It was like, just try some stuff out, experiment, and I think you just need one person to give you permission to do that, and I think that was what it took. And then I started. Well, I think what was also really good for me was I went and I found all these like certifications and programs that were free to kind of validate if I did know what I was talking about and where my weak points were. And I spent some time doing that, and that helped me a lot. I think if you can get more confident and grounded in what you want to do, and then kind of do some really easy experiments. Like one of the things I did was I did a trade with someone to see what it was like to do a marketing uh, strategy session with them, and then I also started just talking to other colleagues about it, and they were really excited. They're like, "Oh, I need somebody to help me with this," or I know somebody needs you," and to kind of test out the ideas. And I think if the people weren't eager, I would have probably had to go back to the drawing board and think and try some other things. And that I think that happens. I was pretty lucky that I was in the right place, and then COVID happened, and then people really needed marketing help. So um, but that doesn't always happen to people, and there's times where it takes a lot longer than I think I was in a 6 to 9 month period there. Usually it can take like a year or two, or longer to kind of like, oh, wait, maybe this is what I should be doing. And honestly, I think I was in this incubation period for a lot longer than that, and just didn't. It was just, you know, you. I was so used to doing web design, it was terrifying to think about doing something else. And I think that's where a lot of people are. It's like, oh, I know this. I know my. It's like know thy enemy, or know this. It's easy. Well, there's a saying like it's easier to do what you've done over and over again to try something new because
The
um,
try, yeah,
right. It's like so
yeah.
comfortable to be in you know what to expect. The worst thing that happens is nothing
Hmm.
happens, just the same
Yep.
old. And that's what I did for a long time. And then it finally was just like, no. Like, and there was just little glimmers of like, life could be better, life could be different. And I was just like, and luckily I had people on my path that kept telling me that too. So it was a combination of people encouraging me, and then I had to believe in myself too, and just try something different. And that, that is scary.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot of comfort in doing what you've always done because you do know the expected outcomes and like what could go wrong. When you try something completely brand new, it's so unknown to get out
Yeah,
there.
exactly. But that's how we learn. And I think sadly, um, I was so worried about failure and not seeing it as an opportunity to like just learn. And since then, I think I've gotten better about it. It's still hard, but I try to walk the talk with my students, my clients, of like fail fast and learn from it, and then grow. And it sounds weird, but it really is effective. And not dwell on like what could have happened or what did I do wrong, like what did you do right and what could you do more of, and not spend all this time and beat yourself up and kind of get in that depressive state we can get sometimes if we get too far in those weeds. um, but yeah, it's definitely, I think it's a self journey that as a business owner you have to look at yourself, and it's like I think both of you could probably agree, so many people like you have to kind of grow in order to grow your business, because if you don't grow, the business kind of stays stagnant. So sometimes if you have to do a big major
Mhm.
overhaul, you have to kind of do one too, and um, maybe learn some new techniques or tools, or push yourself in ways that you didn't think you could do. Like I think I remember taking an improv class a couple years ago, and I think that has been helped me in my teaching and facilitating and that type of stuff. And I never would have thought I would do that, but I had a friend to be like, let's try it. I'm like, okay. So I think it's good to try new things, because then it shows you what's possible too.
What quick tips do you have for folks who are introverted or highly sensitive or feel drained from most extroverted marketing activities? Where would you tell them to start?
Yeah, I think a lot of times when I work with folks that identify that way is to just take the pressure off yourself and don't feel like you have to do what everyone else is doing, because that doesn't work for you. And don't let our society, which is very extrovert driven, tell you that you're gonna fail if you don't do this XYZ. Just kind of just start blocking off and ignoring that talk, because I think that is half the battle right there, is just to understand that you can do things a little differently, and giving yourself permission to think about that. And I think once you actually do that, you're allowed to actually think different thoughts and think about things in a different capacity, and then you have your own ideas. And so I think that could look different for everyone. I've worked with a couple different clients where email marketing was something that they felt comfortable doing and playing with, and it's a nice quieter way to market. But for some that doesn't feel right, and so it kind of goes back, and it's a nice quieter way to market, but authentic to you and works in your capacity. I have this one client who um, luckily she's able to really connect with cards and different ways to like kind of email personally, and she's been experimenting with different software. It's really fun, and she'll even have these little zebras she'll send in the mail with people's cards that help her stand out and give them some kind of like little token of hope and interest of what she offers. And I think for some people networking can be great, but also kind of think of it as like online networking can be a little bit more introverted based and easier to do, and it's less draining. So that can be something to
Mhm.
explore. And there's so many, as you know, Ashlan, you've introduced me to a few. There's so many great online networking groups that meet on a regular basis that can be perfect for that type of thing. So I think those two places could be an easy one to start, or just even like setting up coffee chats one on one with people. That is wonderful for introverts, because it doesn't drain them, and it gives them a chance to get to know someone on a really like genuine basis. And there's not a lot of small talk, it's like real talk happening.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Yeah, I hate having to do like the crosstalk in the room with people. It's always so hard. I actually have a new networking group that I joined that I'm going to have to invite you as a guest to.
Nice.
I feel
Oh,
like you'll
okay.
really enjoy it
Great.
as well. Um, Awesome. Well, I know that you focus on serving folks who are introverts and highly sensitive. I really love how you talk about the power of repurposing your content, because I do think that that is something that really gets to a lot of folks who already feel like they have a hard time promoting themselves, is like, oh God, I have to do another new thing. So can you tell us about how you want more entrepreneurs to kind of dig into that repurposed content, and kind of how to facilitate that instead of always needing to do the new and cool thing?
That's a good point, Ashlan. So I was just doing a workshop yesterday, and how I was just using one example of even like, was it like a blog post, like starting with one piece of content and then thinking about how you can, put that in different capacities. And it doesn't have to be so hard. Like, it could just be like, it could also be part of a LinkedIn post, or it could be part of a newsletter. And people think, oh, people just think I'm going to repeat myself, and it's just, they don't want to hear the same thing. But no, actually the opposite, because we all learn by learning, exposure many times. And especially now that I teach a lot more, I'm learning how important it is for my students to see that over and over and over again. Even when I'm learning new material, I have to see it over and over and over. So when you're trying to educate people and to introduce new ideas, they're not going to get it the first time, probably. They're going to get it maybe the seventh time. So maybe feeling comfortable retitling, or even adding new images, or better yet, adding another authority, thought leader, somebody that you respect, and having their take on it, and having that be part of the content can be really powerful, and put a new spin on it. But it's funny. I study this a lot and watch what other people do, and it's hard to always weed out if I've seen something before, because there's a lot of tweaking and things that happen, and usually I need to see it a lot in order to understand it. So and I also encourage people just to even look at what they have before they even start creating new content. Look back at, they probably have blog posts or newsletters or something where they were sharing content, and seeing what you can recycle already. That's probably, like the evergreen content, something that can be used any time of year. And I bet you so many people have this. I bet people in your audience have this, and they can start with that, and it can just take the pressure off trying to create new content.
Absolutely. I know that is something that I have been working on with a lot of folks, that they're like, oh, I don't want to email people that often. And I'm like, I just signed up for a bunch of new people's email newsletters. And I was like, I don't notice. I actually have them all kind of in a folder to be a lesson to folks, that like, you can send 3 emails a week, and people, they're getting so much that they don't even notice or realize that you're sending things that often, especially if it's, a variety of content. And I know that that's something that I am working on in my own business, is like being consistent with like a Monday newsletter that introduces like a topic. You often respond back to me on them, which is like, I know that there's some golden nuggets in there, but I have been thinking about like launching a LinkedIn newsletter, and then I'm like, I'm just going to recycle what I did in my email newsletter already, and putting that on a new platform. So yeah, you don't need to do anything new, especially if you have like a service or something that people need to buy, and they need to understand like why it's important for them and why they need to buy it. So I really love that, focusing on that evergreen anytime content, and putting a new perspective or responding to somebody else who's doing it as well is a good way to kind of frame and formulate that.
What does marketing authentically mean for you?
Yes. I believe, and this is something I talk about with my clients and community so much, I believe it means that, you're doing it, you're sharing your services and how you help people in a way that's not compromising your values, or how you, or the messaging, or how the actual like process of what you're sharing. So for example, I had one client who was on Instagram, and she was just like really upset because she felt like her message was not being heard. It was a very competitive market. She was a personal stylist and just was not getting her message across. And we talked through it in our sessions, and I realized, she was actually a little bit more of an extrovert and better with people in person. And so I challenged her. I'm like, hey, have you done much networking in person? Like, have you gone to any of these some groups that might match who you're working with? And she's like, no, but now you mention it, that sounds like fun. She's like, usually when I talk to someone and I share what I do, they usually want to be a client. They get pretty excited about what I offer. And I'm like, well, that might be the way to go. So her way of marketing authentically was to be able to, connect with people in person and have share that energy of the room and then connect on that. And that was, so for her, that means a lot, but it's not the same for everyone, obviously. So I think it's so important for someone to stop and pause and think about what that looks like. And that sometimes it takes some time. It's not something that comes right away, but I think knowing yourself and doing assessments and knowing who your audience is are all things. I'm sure you know all this, Ashlan. This is no news to you, but it's very important because marketing can take a lot of energy, and if you're blasting it in the wrong way or blasting it in a way that you shouldn't blast it at all, and you should be more gentle and acknowledge who you're talking to and be thoughtful and think about in different segments of groups and how they want to receive messaging. I feel like that's the best definition of being authentic and not trying to be someone. You're not trying to put a mask on and pretend that you're an influencer when you're actually, that's opposite of what you want to be and who you want to represent.
Totally. Yeah. I have that conversation used to have that conversation with somebody who used to help me do my Instagram and stuff. They're like, what is your goal? And I was like, my goal is not to be an influencer. That is not my goal. My goal is to be helpful, put helpful things out. And honestly, I feel much more comfortable, doing the email newsletters and writing blog posts than I do holding my phone and doing the thing. Yeah. And I feel like I mess up a lot more, and that's actually why I really love doing for some reason the podcast feels better and easier because I did have somebody say but you are doing this every week, and it's just but I'm talking to someone. I was I'm not talking to somebody on my phone. I feel essentially like I'm talking to myself, and then you get into your head and you're just oh crap, I messed that up, or I want to say that again, and then I go into that downward spiral of every time I mess up I have to edit this. I don't really want to edit it, so you're it becomes more of a chore than it is worth. So I think definitely feeling out the marketing methods that are authentic to you is much more impactful than it's going to feel like you're faking it if you're faking it, and you're going to have that come through. I think that's something that I focus on a lot with my clients when I first start talking to them is if it doesn't feel right, it's what you put out on that channel is not going to come across in the way that, you really want it to feel. So don't do it if it doesn't feel.
Yeah. And I had some time to reflect, and I was struggling with that with my web design business. I was doing a lot of things inauthentically back then and trying to figure out why. And then it kind of hit me in the head because it's you don't want to be doing this. You're trying to just appeal to the masses when your own clients don't even want to see you on Instagram either. So it was really kind of an epiphany to give myself permission to stop it and just connect with people on a level that makes sense to me and them. And it was just such a nice thing to let go of. It takes some time though.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We wanted to give you an opportunity. Is there anything you want to plug or promote as we close out this episode?
Yeah, I have a really great free workshop that I do monthly called Marketing Focus Days, and it's a combination of building community. You get to meet other business owners and talk to them for a little bit, and then you also usually get a marketing lesson or some kind of tips and tricks from me on some theme. But then you actually get devoted time to work on your marketing, at least 20 minutes, where the accountability's there. You're off camera, off Zoom because it's all on Zoom, but to work on your business, on your marketing, not client work, and then come back and have some collaboration and share what you did and also kind of what next steps are.
Yeah, I've actually attended one of those. They're super fun and informative. And I feel even though, we both do stuff in the marketing space, I feel I still get sometimes, like you said, you have to hear the same things over and over again. So it is just a nice reminder of Oh, yes, that still is a best practice. Yes, that is still what I need to be doing. So, yeah, highly recommend. Those have been fun conversations to be a part of as well. So, with that, we want to say thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Take the Leap. Thank you so much, Nedra, and look forward to connecting with you again very soon.
Thanks so much, Ashlan and Tory. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Take the Leap podcast. We hope you found useful takeaways you can apply to your entrepreneurial journey. Subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and keep in touch and follow us on Instagram. If you have business questions, shoot us a direct message or leave us a comment. We'll try to cover it in an upcoming episode. And visit our website, taketheleap-today.com, for more resources like our online course that accompanies this podcast.